Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the moment I give my colleague, His Excellency Ndayishimiye, who is the President of Burundi, when I give him the powers of the realm, I know that there is a lot going on when it comes to security in the Great Lakes region, especially in the Congo. Actually, for the last weeks, the people of Congo have been victims of deaths in Kishishe, in Ruchuru, in the province of North Kivu, given activism of terrorist groups that are really causing havoc in the region. In the same vein, there is a raise in tensions observed in Sudan, in Khartoum, and this brings about innocent victims and many displaced persons.
The United Nations remains fully engaged by your side. Only together can we achieve the common objectives of peace, security and cooperation of the Addis Ababa framework. The peoples of the region are counting on us. I thank you. Asante sana. Murakoze Chane.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with Africa Speaks Now. That is UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres together with the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi at the 11th Summit of the Regional Oversight and Cooperation Framework that happened this weekend. And that is exactly what we want to talk about, the peacekeeping mission in the DRC. And joining me for that particular conversation is Wilfred Muliro, who is a research fellow, Global Center for Policy and Strategy, also known as GLOSEPS, and equally an international relations expert. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so from what they say, that is, president of the DRC, he's been captured in different medias, talking about the peacekeeping mission at DRC. That was during the weekend. Yesterday he was in Botswana, and I think in Botswana he equally complained about the peacekeeping mission. What seems to be the problem? Because it seems like there is an issue, but no one knows what the issue is.
That's right. Actually, you are. Thank you very much, Ashley, for having me here.
Karibu.
And you are right to raise those burning inquiries that will now lead us to the problem itself. They say you begin with questioning, and you've really questioned because the perspective seems to boil down to the president. And the president of DRC appears to be uneasy, sitting very uncomfortably, but he is not explaining. He hides it himself. He is not explaining, and the majority are as frustrated as you're asking. But then we talk of coincidences and events surrounding. So we can study the events and his behavior, and we can conclude that the problem lies somewhere. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that it is very interesting for when you listen to his speeches, especially when he was giving a joint statement with the Botswana leader. In that case, you'll see that he doesn't have those glowing words that he had for EAC when he was joining. Mm-hmm. He's talking about that organization, and he's talking of SADC. But the last statement as he moves to the end, which I thought must be, it tells us the real issue, which is actually the elections. He talks about bringing back people who had been displaced so that they can participate in the elections. Who are these people? So you look at that and you'll find that it is him who will select, bringing back voters. Mm-hmm. And we don't know them. He's saying displaced and so that they can come and participate in the elections. And when you look at that, you'll see that continuously you have identified very well, almost bordering on a whining leader who is dissatisfied with the support. He's not focusing on the positives that have been done because it appears that the positives are almost endangering his ambitions as a person, not the state. I wish that President Tshisekedi stepped back and looked at the wider picture of the Congolese people themselves and the direction. And the Congolese is a mosaic, you know, it's like a rainbow of communities that transition across even the borders.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the state is huge. We have said this, that the more the vast a state is, it has more neighbors. And that means the interactions are very high also, and it becomes prominent internationally and regionally.
Yeah.
And it faces the challenges that most African states face accruing from our borders. So communities were split across the borders during the Berlin Conference, cutting.
Yeah.
So even in Kenya here, we have, look at Kenya small with few neighbors, but the challenge of communities crossing the borders, relatives, you look at even the Maasais and Tanzania. So for him to start splitting hair, you know, he's going back to the most difficult part, that who is Congolese, and people have lived there for long. You know, Julius Nyerere said that we should not focus on who should go where in DRC. All of them should be taken as members, as they claim. They are people, Banyamulenge and the rest. Deal with them in that manner.
Because they belong there.
They belong there.
Yeah.
But if you start telling Africans on the continent, go back to where you belong with these arbitrary borders, then you'll have a problem.
Okay.
Yes.
And now, it seems from what I'm understanding from your, your response is that this peacekeeping mission, quote unquote, has sort of been politicized by the president. But maybe going back and giving them maybe, just a doubt. Could it be that maybe they misunderstood the mandate of the peacekeeping mission in the first place?
I think it's I don't know why the president did not come out clearly when they were having those agreements, the status of the force agreement, the SOFA. It was very clear that just like any other peacekeeping mission, it is not an enforcement mission.
Yeah.
It's normally not going there to fight, not heavily armed. They go there for the purposes of two things: protecting civilians and monitoring the political peace process. And that's what they have said. We are coming for peacekeeping mandate, protect civilians, and then make sure that we monitor the ceasefire, the political peace process that is going on, the Nairobi and the Luanda that was at that time.
Yeah.
But then for the president to come and he should have raised that at the level of the summit. You know, the summit was a meeting of leaders, heads of state, yes, and governments in the EAC. Those are the people who finally mapped even the mandate of the force itself. And that is where he should have told them that I want you to come in and fight M23. Because the leaders, you can see that the force reports to the Secretary General of the EAC, who is given directions, implementing the directions of the heads of state and government. The leaders have said that priority is given to the political process, the peace process first. So now we have almost three. We have the Nairobi peace process, we have the Luanda one, and we have now Bujumbura peace process. So what the regional force is saying, in particularly led by the KDF, is that let us give room to the peace process. Force will be the last resort. But the president is now coming, and he attended those meetings, and he's saying, let them run concurrently. I don't know how it will happen, that let us use force as we also sort this political process.
Actually, that was my next question. Could it be the problem is that these forces are from different countries joined all in one to form the East African, community regional force? As you said earlier on, each country, each state has its own ambitions.
Yes, yes.
So the fact that you're combining different ambitions of different heads of state into that mission in itself, isn't that a problem?
Actually, you've captured that. It is a long challenge that has been discussed at a level of the UN when they were looking at peace missions. And they were thinking about issues of neutrality, impartiality. And that's why the UN, for a long time, its troop contributing countries were always not neighboring countries. So they pick countries from Pakistan, Latin America to form the troops for the UN mission in Africa. Mm-hmm. But with the time, because of donor fatigue and the UN became overloaded, they agreed on the issues. I think it is a new invention, especially by the African Union and other regional organizations, that we who are affected by the conflict in a neighboring state should be the ones who will have the interest and even the enthusiasm to intervene and create peace there. So therefore, it made it easier that they can deploy very fast, and also they can meet the costs as they wait for the UN to do that. Mm-hmm. And it was tried in Somalia, you've seen that, the neighboring states, Ethiopia, Kenya, with sectors. I'm almost seeing the same in DRC. You're given a sector, but you are under one umbrella of the African Union. Mm-hmm. So the EAC has tried that. It is easier to ferry troops from neighboring country. The costs are very high, and the UN takes long. Mm-hmm. But then, it has been also realized that it comes with aspects of state interests. Neighboring states always they interact more and the interests are higher.
Yeah.
And so you have observed very well that since it is a joint intervention, and inside there you have Rwanda, which has very parallel interests with the DRC. Inside there you have Uganda. So you have Kenya there leading, and therefore it appears that the ESF is facing challenges from acceptance by DRC just because maybe one element, it's not the whole thing, just because there is somebody there you do not like and you condemn the entire intervention in that case. So I think you have rightly observed, but that should not be the problem, because regional bodies, the AU is still trying that. It has not operationalized its African Standby Force. The East African Standby Force needs to be even, in fact, maybe operationalized in that case. But even the UN does not have its own military, so they rely on troop contributing countries. And the story I gave you is that neighbors now are becoming that more interest. Therefore, you need to intervene. And the African Union has been giving the story that it is an African perspective, because in Africa, if your neighbor's house is burning, we all run there to help.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying lately.
Yes.
You know, it's an African problem, so it requires an African solution.
Yes,
but also, still on the same, you know, if you remember that communique from the Major General Jeff Nyaga, and you know, the number of issues that were mentioned in that particular communique, you know, talking about the fact that his safety and a systematic plan to frustrate the forces' efforts are equally, you know, all inside that same peacekeeping mission. So my question to you is, so then how do you help a country which is in conflict, which may not, or what it seems, it does not want that help?
I think you are very good, actually, like you are writing a research, and you are, as you do the research, you are actually asking very correct questions, inquiring what is happening. So in this case, you know, it is a wider picture in DRC. There is the Congolese people, and there is the leaders, and the election is around the corner. And therefore, the leader is purely looking at ways of being re-elected. Maybe if we didn't have the election, EAC regional force will not be having such the crisis. Yeah. Remember, even it's not that he has refused; he accepted. You know, intervention is by consent. Even the extension, the Secretary General Mathuki of East Africa Community wrote to him asking for an extension. That's what he's talking about all this time, because we recognize that intervention in a sovereign state comes with, you must be invited by the head of state. Yes, the government of the day that is there. But now this mid-term, your frustration in the questions is because of this mid-term turn of events. So you accept with the mandate, you are aware of it, And when the process starts, then you start complaining. And you are blaming the wrong people. And it is for this reason. If you look at the communique of Nyaga, just because he's, he was leading the military diplomacy, and the military people are disciplined, especially in Kenya, in terms of taking care of the sovereignty of the other states. He talked about there was a concerted media campaign against ESF and him as a person. The Facebook of the ES regional force was suspended. That's by the government. And you can see the coincidence that I was telling you again. By the time we started thinking that it is the Congolese people who do not want the ICRAF, East Africa Regional Force, to be there, there was now a coordinated mechanism from the government to portray that, like mobilizing the people. If you listen, I listened even to media when they were demonstrating. We were used to those demonstrations against MONUSCO. They were spontaneous because it has been there for a long time. It might be the longest UN mission in a country and almost the largest. There were spontaneous demonstrations against MONUSCO. But for East Africa Regional Force, it looked like it was choreographed. And you could see at one time when there was a demonstration against MONUSCO, the government came and dispersed the civilians. But this one, the government looked the other side. And it will tell you that there is something personal linked to politics that has been brought forward by Tshisekedi. And this is what he wants. He wants a force commander who can listen to his interests, not to the interests of
the people.
The people as they, not to follow the mandate as given. Nyaga has been in foreign, Major General, he has been in foreign missions severally. He's a difficult person, as they say, to be manipulated. He is following the mandate. But then the president wants somebody can call to his office and say, okay, you are the regional force commander, please, we want you to do this in Eastern Congo, close an eye against FDLR. There are many groups. And I think where the problem came is that the regional force said that they are going there to not to just fight M23 only, they'll fight all armed groups. And remember, the FDLR is like the one we are seeing, RSF in Sudan. It is intermittently used by the government in its own wars.
All right.
Yes.
So as we conclude, so then now what happens? We saw the mandate of the EAC regional force end in March. It was extended to June. And now there are talks of SADC coming into the picture. Where does that leave the EAC regional force and this peacekeeping mission in general, now that they're bringing in another body?
Actually, if you can look at that, you'll see the script. That SADC is plan B of President Tshisekedi. He is the person doing all this. It has happened before, the ones that people call the World War of Africa. So the Congo War, the first Congo War, that removed Mobutu. There were forces from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Angola, down there. And most of them, the payment was done in terms of resources. So, in my view, the president of DRC is trying to politicize the whole situation, create a divide and rule that was there, because the second Congo War, again, the same happened. When they wanted to remove Kabila now again, he went SADC side, and there was Uganda and Rwanda on the other side. So, in my view, when you bring in SADC in this conflict, you are trying to create two things. That one is what we mentioned, that for the first time, we are going to see a very clear picture of rivalry between sub-regional organizations. And we thought the AU has a slogan that says that sub-regional organizations are building blocks for African unity. But now, EAC is there, and there will be now rivalry with SADC. And the idea of bringing SADC is just politicize the situation. I know even in their heart of hearts, SADC does not have that military muscle like ECOWAS, you know. It's almost the level of EAC. EAC has tried. So SADC cannot just say we'll come and vanquish M23. What of the other many armed groups? The issue of vanquishing the armed groups there must begin from the edges. It's delicate the way you say it. It's a joint intervention, and sovereign states that belong to the African Union, belong to the EAC, belong to SADC, have interest. They have interest in DRC.
Yeah.
So, and those interests, the challenge is that they have groups that straddle all the territories. You know, moving from Rwanda to DRC, moving from Uganda to DRC, we have the ADF, Allied Democratic Force. So DRC, when I look at it, I see three layers. You know, we talked about this.
Yes.
The layer that is outside Africa.
In 30 seconds, yes.
Yes, then we have the regional layer, the states. Then we have the internal layer where Tshisekedi is now struggling with that there, in that case.
All right, so this is very delicate. It could equally worsen the situation, or it could better the situation. All we have to do is wait and see. Thank you so much, Wilfred Muliro, who is a research fellow, Global Center for Policy and Strategy, and equally an international relations expert. And I am Ashley Mazuri. That's all we had for you on Africa Speaks. Enjoy the rest of the video.